Hazan, did I tell you about the funny call I got this week from a religious school parent?
No.
You'll like this. I think you guys will too. I received a call this week from a parent of one of our religious school students whose son is about 10 years old. It seems the two of them were having a very interesting conversation while they were driving home from Sunday school last week. "What did you learn about today?" the dad asked. The child responded, "The teacher told us about the Israelites' escape from Egypt." "Oh, really?" asked the father. "Yes," responded the kid as he continued the story. "Apparently, they came to the Sea of Reeds and built pontoons and drove across the water. And then, as soon as the Egyptians and their tanks were on the pontoons, the Israelites sent in their air force and bombed them. And so then, the Israelites were free." The father looked up with surprise at his child. "Is that really what they taught you at religious school?" "Not really," answered the child, but if I told you what they told me, you would never believe it." Okay, so this was a joke, but there's truth to the fact that the stories we read in the Exodus narrative are somewhat hard to trust. This got me thinking about the things we're asked to believe in and how we're supposed to react to them. I think about the burning bush, the parting sea, the food from heaven, the well that followed them around the desert and provided water, and realize that this religion of reason of ours is also quite fantastical. So what are we to do with these pieces of our Torah? Are we supposed to think God will provide for all of our needs? Do we read this text and determine that prayer is the correct response to hardship? Should faith bring us comfort that a wondrous miracle will soon be on the way? I believe the text might actually be suggesting a different path. As in our Torah portion this week, we read the Israelites' miraculous escape from Egypt. The Torah tells us that as they are pursuing their freedom, the Israelites are caught between the sea on one side and the pursuing Egyptians on the other side. The Israelites are truly stuck, and Moses seems to be standing in prayer. When God finally calls to him, saying to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. And you lift up your rod and hold out your arm over the sea and split it, so the Israelites may march into the sea on dry ground." This is fascinating to me, as prayer is not often reprimanded in our tradition. But it's also curious because God seems to be waiting on the Israelites to go forward before helping. Of course, if we're to believe that God is all-powerful enough to split the sea, shouldn't God be powerful enough to do it without needing Moses to hold out his arm in order to make it happen? I believe these verses serve to teach us that faith must be paired with action. Our Torah is teaching us that believing something good will happen and taking steps forward to that future are two different things. This is also affirmed in rabbinic tradition. As many of you know, we read that when Moses finally held out his arm, at that very moment, the prince of the tribe of Judah, Nachshon ben Aminadav, jumps into the water. When the water is up to his neck, that's when the waters part. In this telling of this epic scene, the sea only parts after the Israelites take action. One of the greatest existential philosophers, Soren Kierkegaard, a religious Christian, in his book Fear of Trembling, speaks of the importance of a leap of faith. Yes, it's true, faith may require a leap. But for Judaism, it also requires something more. In response to this notion of a leap of faith, the great American Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who marched with Martin Luther King Jr., said that what we need is not a leap of faith, but rather a leap of action. Moving forward and taking action is the ideal of our tradition. This is the hidden lesson in the parting of the sea. We must not simply hand everything in our lives over to God. We must do more than pray and hope. We must leap. We must go forward. We must act. Yes, we can also pray. We can cry out to God when we need, but we need to do more than that alone. There's a well-known Hasidic story of a king who sends his son far away because of his poor behavior. The son grows up in a far-off village. Finally, the son decides to change his ways, but he does not pray for his dad to come retrieve him. Instead, he begins the journey back to the king's palace. When the king hears that his son is returning home, he tells his servants, "Saddle my horse. I'm going to meet my son halfway." The meaning of the parable is clear. When we begin to take action, that's when God meets us halfway. I know congregants who are distressed that they aren't yet able to procure vaccines. I've heard so many people who are worried, and this leads to hopelessness for many. But there's more to do than to cry out to God. Even if the system is flawed, we keep trying. We have those who have kept calling back, waiting for the next round to open, gone to nearby counties. They've decided to keep trying even when it looks hopeless. This is just one example of this important idea. There will be many times in our lives when we look to God, seeking help, seeking a resolution, praying that a sea will split or the Air Force will bomb the pontoons, whatever it is you can believe is possible. But we must find a way to keep striving, no matter how bad the odds. For as Nachshon ben Aminadav has taught us, even if the water is up to our neck, we need to keep moving forward. It is in those hardest of moments when we must listen clearly to hear God's voice saying back to us, "Why are you simply crying to me? Go forward, keep moving." Shabbat Shalom. It is now my honor to invite